For years, John's friends thought of him as the biggest fool in the world. They couldn't understand how, despite being a wealthy entrepreneur, John was still married to his serial cheater wife. Together, the couple had 3 kids, 2 boys and 1 girl. They had been married for 11 years. The first 8 years were happy ones, but for the past 4 years, John's wife, Maureen, had sank into a pit of infidelity. Maureen was a top CEO in a large pharmaceutical firm, and so because of the nature of her job, she used to travel a lot with her colleagues. At times, she would be away from home for weeks, and so John and the kids would be left at the care of their nanny. At first, being the loving and supportive husband he was, John was okay with all the travels that his wife did, and he never once complained about it. However, one day, 4 years ago, while his wife was busy in the kitchen and John was in their bedroom, John happened to go through her phone, and he was shocked to come across some love messages between his wife and an unknown guy. In the love messages, the two were happily discussing their infidelity affairs and how they were longing to meet each other soon. Maureen had ended the conversation by telling the guy that she would fake a business trip, and they would then end up spending a whole week together. To say that this conversation really broke John's heart would be an understatement. He couldn't believe how his wife, the mother of his kids, would end up cheating on him. On doing some more research, John came to find out that the unknown lover was just a tip of the iceberg. His wife had a string of men who she was having extramarital affairs with. And as if that wasn't shocking enough, John realized that his wife had lost her job 2 years ago, and so all her business trips were not real business trips, but a chance for her to meet her many lovers. In return, the lovers would generously give Maureen lots of cash for her time, and she always used the money to convince John that it was her job's salary. All this evidence was backed up by the numerous texts and emails in his wife's phone. At first, fuming with rage, John thought of killing his wife, but he wrestled against the thought, as he didn't want to kill the mother of his kids. He then thought of divorcing his wife, but he didn't have the guts to do it. He thought of confronting his wife, but again, his courage failed him. It's like his decision-making ability had suddenly left him. He just felt so much betrayal in his heart that he just soothed himself to sleep. When he finally woke up, it was already in the afternoon hours. He went to the sitting room, and he found his wife watching her favorite TV show. Acting as if he knew nothing, John joined her, and together they watched the show. When the show ended, Maureen told John that early the next day, she was going for a business trip, and that she would be back after 1 week. Knowing very well about her true intentions, John didn't even bother to object, as he didn't want his wife to know that he knew about her secret affairs. He didn't want to make any rash decisions at this time. As always, he wished her a nice trip, and Maureen reciprocated the warm wishes by giving him a tight hug. When Maureen left the next day, John joined a group of his best friends in a local restaurant, and from there, John narrated to them all about his wife's infidelity. His friends, meaning the best for him, gave him all sorts of advice, but the most mentioned of them all was that he should divorce his wife. John told them that he would think about the matter once he got home. However, days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and months turned to years, yet John was still hesitant to make the decision. In fact, it's like he had grown used to the fact that his wife was a cheater, and there was nothing he could do about it. As time went by, John became the laughingstock whenever he met up with his friends. They ridiculed him about his inability as the man of his house to take action against his wife. "John, it's 4 years now since you found out that your wife is cheating on you. How do you live in the same house with a woman who is having extramarital affairs with other men? Is she not more of a prostitute? How come you can't chase her away despite the fact that you are financially independent? Where is your masculinity, John? If not for courage, why don't you do it for the shame? Are there no other women in the world? All these questions, and many more, always fell hard on John whenever he met his friends. So one day, John's friends, in an effort to make him dump his wife, they shame-talked him so hard until John couldn't contain his tears anymore. He cried so bitterly that his cry made his friends' eyes teary. Then, in a broken voice and tears running down his cheeks, John narrated to them the story of his life. My friends, I know for long, you have always seen me as a coward, one who doesn't have the guts to dump my cheating wife. I know you all take me for a fool, but the truth is, sometimes I also think of myself the same way. So today, I'm gonna set the record straight. After a long pause, John continued, I was born out of wedlock. My mom was just a teen when she gave birth to me. Her parents had tried to convince her to abort me, but my mom refused. As a result of that, she was chased away from home, and so by the time she got me, she was homeless and living in the streets. However, one desirable trait about my mom was that she was a go-getter. She did all she could to ensure that she provided everything for me. Soon after, she got a job, and because of her hardworking nature, she got several promotions, and she finally became financially stable by the time she was 23. I was 5 years then. She bought a house, and soon, life became smooth and easy. When I was 10, my mom happened to date a wealthy man who had just lost his wife. The man, who soon became my stepdad, had 3 children, and he didn't mind the fact that my mom had me. He took us in, and we became a family of 6. My stepdad was extremely wealthy, and so life became even sweeter. He genuinely loved my mom, and the two seemed to be like a pair made in heaven. My stepdad filled the man of the house shoes perfectly. He took me to good schools, and always provided me with everything I needed. However, the only downside in my stepdad's legacy was that he didn't take me fully as his son. Despite the fact that he always provided me with everything good that life could offer, he never once acknowledged me as his son. So, if we went to a gathering, a church function, or he met his friends, he always introduced us like, "This is my wife, these are my kids," and then, pointing at me, he would go like, "And that's my wife's kid." Anytime he introduced me to a group of people, instead of him referring to me as his son, or his stepson for that matter, he always referred me as his wife's kid. At first, I thought if I did my best in school and got straight A's, he would take me in as his son. However, this changed nothing. I topped my classes all the way to the university, but all these efforts didn't win me the title of being called his son. In fact, during my graduation ceremony after uni, despite my academic excellence, and that moment being my proudest moment in my life, my stepdad still introduced me as his wife's kid. I had done all I could to make him proud, but still, he refused to call me his son. He was ever good in all the other areas of my life. In fact, he was the best dad ever, but calling me his son was where he used to draw the line. So, after uni, my stepdad helped me secure a very good job with a hefty pay in one of the multinational companies. Each month, I used to buy him gifts, and he would gladly receive them and bless me, but still, to him, I was still his wife's kid. So one day, with a heavy heart, I finally came to the conclusion that no matter how many worlds I gave my stepdad, he would never call me his son. So, I started a quest to find my real dad, and by God's grace, I was able to find him, and we set up a meeting. The night prior to meeting my dad was the longest in my life. I was very anxious waiting to meet the one man who looked like me. I would finally get to see where I got my body features from. I was eagerly waiting to tell my dad all about my life, how successful I had become. I was to tell him all about my plans and all that I was intending to achieve in this life. I imagined how he would embrace me warmly and then call me his son, and that thought alone made my heart melt with happiness. I was beside myself with excitement. The morning of the material day, I took almost 4 hours standing in front of my closet, trying to figure what best outfit I was to wear. I didn't want to mess up this day. I wanted my dad to smile the moment he saw me, and so I had to dress to perfection. I had even bought an expensive cologne, just to smell good around my dad. Finally, I arrived at the hotel 30 minutes earlier so that I couldn't keep my dad waiting. I had even practiced some warm welcoming greetings and phrases that I would use on him the moment I saw him. However, all those efforts got crashed the moment my dad walked in. In the 3 minutes of his life that he gave me, I've never felt so heartbroken like that in my life. Even my wife's cheating scandal can't compare. You see, after 28 years, I was finally meeting my dad, but my dad wasn't happy at all to see me. He gave me a cold look, and instead of calling me his son, he called me young man. With an intimidating look and a not-so-friendly voice, he asked me, "Hey young man, what's the matter with you? Why are you looking for me? Is it money you need? Don't you know me and your mom parted ways a long time ago? Why did you go to great lengths searching for me?" His questions made me freeze. I couldn't believe that my real dad would be this harsh to me. For a minute, I didn't know what to say, and that's when he rose from his seat and told me, "I may have fathered you, but I am not your dad. I have a family that would not be so happy to learn about you. Keep away from my world and never call me or come looking for me ever again." With that said, my dad walked out of the hotel, and that was the last time I ever saw or heard of him. When I got home, I couldn't stop crying for days. What was the need of all my successes if my own dad couldn't celebrate me? How much pain did I have to go through just to hear someone call me his son? And from that day, my friends, I swore to myself that I will never let my kids struggle with their identity. It's true their mom is a serial cheater, but still, she is my kids' mom. I don't want my kids to call anyone else their mom or dad, besides me and my wife. I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. And that, my friends, that's why I have endured my wife's behavior, because I love my kids. With that said, John completed narrating his life story to his friends. His story moved them to the extent they couldn't stop crying. They vowed that they would talk to Maureen and ask her to change her ways. Surprisingly, when they told her, Maureen was so sorry, and she even apologized to her husband profusely in front of his friends. It turned out, Maureen was too afraid to tell her husband that she had lost her job, and that's why fear had led her to infidelity, as she tried to stay afloat financially so she could clear her bills in the house.